Hey, it's Ben with Lions SRD here. Really quickly, thanks for stopping by. And if you want to catch our other shows here on sportsradiodetroit.com, like Out of Bounds, the SRD Road Show, Laugh Tracks, Spinning the Wheels, any of our great selections, you easily can. Just go to Apple's iTunes, Spotify, right here on Podbeam. You can go directly to the website, sportsradiodetroit.com, and basically get all the content you want. We just appreciate you stopping by, and if you like it, give us a good review so other people can find it. Now, Lions SRD.
You're listening to Sports Radio Detroit.
Let's go out and leave it all on the field. It's going to start with us. We got to make plays in order for us to win. All you got to do is do your assignment, nothing more. Let's go. Playmakers on three. 1, 2, 3, playmakers.
Matthew leans in, he's got it, wants to throw. Pressure comes up at the screen, got it to Riddick. Riddick to 15, Riddick 10, Riddick 5, Riddick end zone! Touchdown, Detroit Lions! He's to Abdullah, right side, got a hole. Abdullah 20, Abdullah 10, shakes the man at the 8, and dances into the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions! The action fake, he's gonna throw. Rhodes does, it is picked off by Lions. Coming back the other way off the deflection. Glover Quinn, back to the house. Touchdown, Detroit Lions! 38 seconds left. Bradford's got it on third down. Sets it, throws. It is intercepted. Darius Slay's got it at the 30. Slay inside the 25. Matthews got it. Looks right. Throws. Caught. Golden Tate. End zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Barkley takes the snap. Back to pass. Looks. Rolling. Hit. Still alive. Now he's not. Going down. Sack. Back outside the 50-yard line. Kerry Hyder's got it. Backing up, looking for somewhere to go. Stafford's going to tuck it and run. Stafford at the 5, 3, 2, 1, end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Oh, Matthew took it home.
Lions SRD on sportsradiodetroit.com.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Lions SRD on sportsradiodetroit.com, starting with an audible. Calling it at the line, Marty Stouffer is out for the night, just not entirely. And we're going old school with this one. Roger Castillo back on Lions SRD. I think this is what, like the first time in like 3 years, 4 years you've been on a Lions show on Sports Radio Detroit?
Yeah, it's been I think 3 years. That sounds about right.
Whew. I mean, I know when we were first starting out, what was that, 5 years ago? It was just you, me, and Mike. But yeah, normally you can find Roger doing the SRD Roadshow. He's the brains behind that operation and Tigers SRD and the brains behind anything else basically you hear on this network. So yeah, thankful that you can stop by filling in for Marty. And one thing that was kind of weird, because the past 2 Sundays have been weird in different respects before the Lions have ever kicked off, right? 2 Sundays ago, it was the whole Silverdome fiasco, how they couldn't implode the walls right. The walls still stood. It was the perfect, basically the perfect way to describe how stubborn the Lions are and blah, 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 blah. But this past Sunday was no different. Right before kickoff, about an hour or two before kickoff, found an interesting tidbit from NFL reporter Ian Rappaport and confirmed by the local beat writers around here. And I know, Roger, you don't really like local beat writers all that much, but
it depends on who it is. Yeah, it depends on who it is. So well, I don't mind all of them.
Well, right, but there's. I know, like, sometimes you feel like they don't work as hard as they could in breaking a story. And I think this would be one of those times, because for me, it's irritating that we had to find out from a national reporter that basically Jim Caldwell's extension is only until 2018. It's not like a big, long extension. No one in this town writing for The Athletic, The Detroit News, The Free Press, MLive, what have you, could figure out how long the contract extension was, but yet here's Ian Rappaport coming out and breaking this news. I think it was 11 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, basically saying Jim Caldwell's extension is only good until 2018. Essentially, he got a 2-year deal, one for this season and then one for next year, which I believe is not even a full thing. It's an option. But, it was, I think, music to a lot of Lions fans' ears, and because it confirms that the Lions can still possibly, potentially, fire Jim Caldwell. But before we dive into that, do you think that that's kind of fair? Because I know, like, with the Tigers, some of the Tigers writers in this town, you kind of get on them for, not being able to dig in at certain levels to find story information. Do you think, like, I'm too far off base with that?
I think Ben, though, the way the Lions writers get treated in this town, I think the Lion beat writers, Dave Burkett, Justin Rodgers, do a good job. But the problem is that Jim Caldwell, you notice this on every single press conference, he gives them nothing. And he always says the media in this town treats them badly, but they're fair. They are fair. Justin Rodgers and Dave Burkett are nothing but fair, and I think they're some of the best beat writers in town. The Tigers, Anthony Finnick has gotten better. He's breaking news more and more, and I'll give Finnick a lot of credit. He's been getting better. But the Lions writers, they asked him today what his favorite movie is, and he goes, I can't discuss it because, you guys are going to get it twisted. It's a simple question. I like whatever movie. And then instead, you became a laughingstock to the point where Ryan Schuling from the Schuling Report actually makes one of the funniest posts I've seen in a while and asks what his favorite movies are. So I think that it was whomever leaked that to Ian Rappaport because he had of his reach out there in social media was on purpose and he wanted to make the Lion beat writers look bad because I seriously think the Lions PR department sometimes has this thing with people who are not in line with the Lions' way of going about things. If you don't fall in line with the Lions' public relations thing, and we saw it with the ticket, and it was clear as day, if you don't fall in line, you're never going to get that full access.
Yeah, I agree with that to a point, but I don't know. It's just something like to the point where you'd almost have to be annoying, right? If you're a beat reporter, you know who Jim Caldwell's agent is. Why aren't you hounding that guy 3 times a week and being like, well, I'd like to know some of the details of this contract. And then, I'd like to know. Because that's where I think Ian Rappaport got the contract information. He didn't get it from the Fords. I don't think he got it from Bob Quinn, unless Bob Quinn did decide to go behind everyone's back and leak it. That is very well possible. But that's where, you just have to be just annoying till finally one day the guy's just like, you know what? Fine, it's 2 years. Okay, it's 2 years. That's it. You're like, wait, what? Till 2018? Yes, get off my back. Okay, man, thanks. And then you just hang up. I don't know. Don't get me wrong. You're right. Justin Rodgers does a great job. Kyle Meineke does a great job. He's at MLive. He's been at MLive for a while. We have a lot of good Lions writers here. I'm just disappointed that they couldn't unearth the news. But here's what we're going to do with the topic, though, is I'd like to know why now. Why are we just learning this? Why was this information, quote-unquote, leaked? It's something that, for the longest time, since week 4, we've been led to believe here in Detroit that this contract is at least like a 3-4 year contract and that we were going to be saddled with Jim Caldwell. Then all of a sudden, before, the start of week 14, this happens. I don't know why now, unless you are planning on firing the guy. Because at this point, while you can, say, yes, the Lions have made the playoffs 2 out of the past 3 years. He's been here, possibly 4. The playoffs aren't necessarily out of the picture. It's bleak, but they're not out of it yet. But there's still obvious coaching decisions he still can't do. Not saving a timeout when he needs to. Bad challenges, what have you. He's notorious for them. Why do you think that the Lions waited until now, basically, to have this information leaked? Because for me, is that they're planning on moving ahead, and he's not going to be the coach at the end of the year.
Yeah, and I think that right now, I think what's been interesting so far in terms of the search and what have you has been, or the whole release of the timing of everything too, has been the fact that quietly the players, I think also you looked at what Golden Tate said, and I feel like there's just kind of like dissent a little bit. The players are kind of, I want to say almost quietly kind of just shaking their heads a little bit. And I think the Golden Tate comment a few weeks back was an indication of that.
Yeah, I mean, it could. I mean, you very well could be right. I mean, honestly, and I've said this for the past couple of weeks. I've said it on the road show. I've said it here on Lions SRD. You should have gone 5-0. You should have gone 5-0 with the last 5 games you had on your schedule. Granted, something that we'll talk about in a little bit, dealing with Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, could obviously change that. But dropping the game they did when they weren't supposed to, I think that's what frustrated people. You lose a game the way you did to the Ravens, 44-20, looking bad. It was 20-0 at the half. I think that's what kind of lost the faith there, because Joe Flacco and company just made the Lions look terrible. I mean, that's the only thing I can honestly think of with all of this leaking of this contract news. I mean, if you're not going to fire him at the end of the year and say, or not necessarily even firing him, just being like, well, we're not picking up the option, he's gone, where would you like the Lions to go looking for a head coach? I know a lot of people would want to say, well, you could go to New England, pick one of the coordinators. You could go this way. You can go that way. Where would you go? Would you go in the NFL? Or would you go outside the NFL? What would you do?
I've never thought the collegiate coaching route works. I've never believed in that in terms of, there's been a few examples I've worked. Look at Pete Carroll, but Pete Carroll was in the NFL before, kind of changed a little bit. He went back, kind of rebuilt himself a little bit, but in terms of coaching candidates that are out there right now, you have the usual suspects, and Josh McDaniels is always the one that comes up. Of course, I think a couple guys, I think that's a familiar name, John Gruden, Jim Harbaugh, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But really, I think a guy who is familiar with some people out there is Frank Reich, offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles. I like that guy a lot. He, in terms of been able to look at the offense the Eagles have been able to run out there in terms of how they've been able to put up a lot of points right now. It's interesting. His name could be getting more notoriety here shortly if the Eagles are able to continue without Carson Wentz the next couple of weeks here with the knee injury. So that you got plug and play there with Nick Foles. So if they can continue that success with him, I think it's going to be it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen here. Mike Rabel, the defensive coordinator in Houston, has done quite a bit especially with the injuries, especially with some of the injuries they've had. Houston's been out of the playoff race, but still, I still think that's a good name to have. Pat Schumer, the offensive coordinator in Minnesota. Look what but then again, you look at his record in Cleveland, you're like, wow. I mean, he was like severely under 500, 9-23, if I'm looking that up right now. But he came from Cleveland. So, but then look what he's done with Case Keenum and Dalvin Cook. So that, I think that's you give some props for that. And really, those are the kind of names I like. I'm trying to think of another one, really. And maybe even if we're talking, like, if you want to talk about maybe it's like an off-the-wall kind of name out there, really, I kind of joke a little bit about this, but maybe a guy like Matt Patricia, the defensive coordinator in New England. The only reason why is because I feel like some of these coordinators in New England are the new hotness, but the problem is sometimes they tend not to work out when they get an NFL job. I mean, look at some like Romeo Cornell. You look at the bigger gentleman, Charlie Weiss as well. Those guys have tend to kind of fizzle out a little bit. So I'm always kind of a little bit leery of offensive coordinators from the Patriot system.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that would be interesting, I like the Frank Reich one. That's a nice out of the box thinking one. I really do. I think that's pretty darn creative. The only thing that I would think of if you're staying in the NFL ranks would be you give Josh McDaniels a second chance, because I think honestly he learned so much when he was in Denver, and his downfall was drafting Tim Tebow, but I don't think he would have that big of a say with Bob Quinn, running the operations, running the front office. I think, he'd be like, hey, I like this guy. And he'd be like, yeah, no, we're not drafting him. Sorry. Or something along those lines. I think Bob Quinn would easily veto anything that came out of Josh McDaniels' mouth. But I don't know. I think, again, if you want to stay in the NFL ranks, the Frank Reich one I do like. But I've always liked David Shaw. I really have. David Shaw at Stanford could be kind of the next coach to come out of Stanford outside of Bill Walsh and obviously Jim Harbaugh to have success in the NFL. I mean, he's a guy you see if you watch the NFL Network for draft coverage. They've used him now for the past 2-3 years, and he's knowledgeable. I mean, he always – and I've said this before – Stanford never dropped off after Jim Harbaugh either, and there's a reason for that, and his name is David Shaw. I mean, he knows what he's doing. But outside of that, I don't like the name of Matt Patricia. I really don't. I think a lot of people want to pencil him in because he's a defensive-minded coach.
Because he's a beard.
Has a beard. A really good beard, too. I mean, that beard is lumberjack-worthy. But a lot of people always think that, if you hire an offensive coach, you have to go defensive. If you hire a player's coach, you have to go to a disciplinarian, this, that, the other thing. And I think that's why they point to Matt Patricia. But I don't know. It's just with what he's done recently with the Patriots defense, I mean, you have guys like Kyle Van Noy who couldn't do anything in Detroit, and now Van Noy is one of the leading tacklers for the Patriots. So say what you will, it's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just I don't know. I'm more skeptical of Matt Patricia than Josh McDaniels if you were to go that route. But I don't know. I really do like that Frank Reich thought process though. You're right. He's developed a nice young quarterback, obviously, in Carson Wentz in 2 years. He's led one of the best comebacks in NFL history when he was with the Bills, playing. So I like that one. That's a really good pick. I tip the cap to you, my friend. Not bad.
Well, thanks. I look at the way the Eagles. I mean, usually what happens when you see the hotness, the new team in the NFL, you always look at the coordinators, and I always kind of those are the jobs that go out first. But Frank Reich's been a good coordinator, and he's done a very good job. And he has been able to, with the way the Eagles have descended, and Carson Wentz is such a good talent, but the Eagles have been devastated by injuries, and they've been able to kind of stay. And that was a really good game last week against the Rams. And so for me, I think Frank Reich is the guy who I think deserves a chance and kind of change up a little bit of this coaching carousel a little bit. This is the first time in a while that you haven't seen a lot of the retreads. So I do like that aspect of it, but I think it is time to get some fresh blood in there.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, they lose their starting offensive left tackle. Didn't really miss a beat. They have their running backs are kind of busted up. They haven't really missed a beat. Now, with Carson Wentz out, who knows what will happen. But I mean, Alshon Jeffrey's looking better. He looked better there than he has with the Bears. So yeah, no, that like I said, I tipped the cap to you on that one. But let's quickly recap the Lions win. It should have been a win because Tampa Bay is, quite frankly, not that good. But the defense was, my goodness, was the defense good on Sunday. It was something that was it was a pleasant surprise. I don't think anyone anticipated 5 turnovers. I don't think anyone really anticipated in his second game playing safety, Quandre Diggs just basically lighting people up, forcing a couple of turnovers. And yeah, I mean, it's honestly one of the best times I've seen this defense look in probably since the first 4 weeks, in all honesty. But the offense still is not showing up at all. Like, it was only 14-7 at the half. You would think it would be a lot more than that. And the Lions never really pulled away until the point where Tampa Bay started to make it close. They scored 14 points in the fourth quarter. Lions only got a field goal. I don't know. I mean, it's just something that this team needs to win, obviously, and you needed to rebound after the debacle that Baltimore was. But you have this just Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde type atmosphere with this team. And you should have beaten the Bucs by more than you did. I mean, to me, that's just the long and short of it. And outside of the officiating that was crazy as well, where stuff is clearly a touchdown, like when Theo Riddick scored, it was clearly a touchdown. Or, when there was that rule change that was changed in the first quarter that was changed to an incompletion, but then ruled, a catch, and then changed basically 3 or 4 times. But I don't know. It's just, for me, seeing this team still not being able to run the football, Matt Stafford still not looking his best. I mean, the 2 interceptions he threw, not good. I mean, it's not. And it's just something that I don't know what this team's going to do with only a couple of games remaining. You would think they could handle the Bears on Saturday at 4, but I don't know. It's just, what was your read from the Lions in that game on Sunday? Because for me, this team has become even harder to read, and I have no faith in them going down the stretch.
Well, that interception, let's talk about Brent Grimes. That was a really good leap in the air by Brent Grimes, that interception. That was a good athletic play by him.
Yeah.
And I thought I saw a lot of just Stafford looked pressured all day a little bit. He was forcing his throws, and he was kind of really – he just seemed – usually he was just staring down receivers, and Tampa Bay was kind of predictable, and I will say that the offense, I mean, now that Amir he's not defined as number 1 running back, and that the running game itself, it has been the running joke for the last 2 years, even longer than that. But what I saw, I mean, you look at what's going on here. The biggest thing I thought was Jarrad Davis did a really good job in this game. He had a couple pass rushes. The forced fumble. He had he's been a little struggling lately. He's been struggling up to this point last few games, but I thought he had a good bounce back game. And again, Tease Tabor has been slowly coming in. But I thought he did a really good job against Mike Evans. I thought he held his own against. I mean, Mike Evans is a beast, 6'5", built like a tank. But that play, when you look at that play in the end zone, it was like a 5-yard, it was like a fade route or something like that, and he just kind of denied him, and that was a really good job by him, all things considering. So I thought he did a really good job throughout the game, and he's coming his own. People were kind of already early on in the season calling him a bust, but I thought that the way they've been bringing him, more snaps, he's been coming in slowly but surely, like 15 to 20 snaps a game. I'm not sure his snap count, but overall, the way they've been progressively bringing him in, I thought the defense did a good job. You mentioned that earlier. I thought I was going to see more of a Tion Green experience. That didn't happen. I thought they were going to see something from him, and that didn't happen. The offensive line is still it's such a crap show. Again, the defense in terms of the Tampa Bay was effectively running the ball quite a bit, so that was kind of a concern.
Mm-hmm.
But what I saw against this team heading into Chicago, and Chicago's been playing better as of late. Mitch Trubisky has been showing that he is actually a legitimate quarterback, which is, I got to admit, I mean, I thought he would be a bust, but he's been proving me wrong. The Bears actually don't look that bad, and the Lions have not been good at home all season long. I have no idea why, and the Bears have been hanging in with folks. So it's going to be a tough game for the Lions, and Ben, if you would have told me that the Ravens were going to score 40 points, Joe Flacco look at an all-pro quarterback, I told you you're crazy. I mean, as Mike from the Road Show would say, wacko Flacco. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen on Sunday, and that's what is maddening about this team. This team is so inconsistent that it's mad. That game, they won by the skin of their teeth. They really did. And in the NFC South, I think the NFC South is the best division in football. And Tampa Bay is a really bad. I mean, it was any other team in the NFC South, if we excluded demonstrated, they would have lost. But they barely beat Tampa. Yeah, they barely beat Tampa Bay.
Right. I mean, this is a team that you needed a last-second field goal to beat, obviously. But, I mean, it's just, I don't know. Like I said, the defense played well until the running game started to find its way for the Bucs. And then outside of that, I mean, the offensive line, they didn't allow a single sack, even though Stafford, didn't look necessarily comfortable on Sunday. I mean, there was times he had enough time where he could anticipate throws, and then there was other times where he just couldn't read the coverage and he just got rid of it. And Grimes makes a great play, like you mentioned. But yeah, it's just, I don't know. It's just something that's really, really insane. Something that you touched on, and I think we're actually going to see a big shift in the running back room. Amir Abdullah, it was released this week that he was eligible to play. He wasn't a scratch. He could have played. They still didn't play him. And Jim Caldwell said basically this week that he'll have an opportunity to play. But it makes you wonder if the Lions are ready to move on from Amir Abdullah. Theo Riddick had 10 carries. Tion Green had 5. Zach Zenner had 2. Granted, that's not a whole heck of a lot, but it's still something that if you have arguably who you call your RB1, your first string running back, why wasn't he playing? If he was still healthy to play, why would you rule him out? Why would you not have him play? And then even this week, not even really committing, saying that he would play. And one thing that was really curious was in Wednesday's press conference, usually when people check the status of players, what's that famous line we always hear? Check the report. That's all we hear from Jim Caldwell. He actually opened up about Abdullah's injury and what he was going through. And it was really, really weird. I was listening to it and it was just, I kind of paused and was like, wait a minute, he doesn't answer these questions. So the fact he answered that question makes it seem like, at least to me, Amir Abdullah is on the outside looking in. And maybe Bob Quinn's just going to move on. And maybe this time around, the Lions do draft a running back. There's still very good running backs coming in this draft. A lot of people want to say this past draft was, the mecca for running backs. But, you can still find good players in every draft. You just have to draft them. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, you mentioned it. Amir Abdullah didn't play. Do you think? I mean, I think he plays on Saturday, but I don't think he's going to be the starting running back. I still think Theo Riddick's going to be that guy. What are your thoughts about that? Just out of curiosity.
I think the thing is, especially with the Lions, have to. It's almost, I don't want the Lions to suffer the Dan Marino fate. Dan Marino never got a running back. And Matthew Stafford, maybe that was Dan Marino's choice. We'll never know what the logic behind that is. But I think the Lions have to assess that. They have to assess that first things first. I mean, Bob Quinn's going to probably get some more pieces for the offensive line because it logically makes sense to me to do that. But I think they have enough offensive weapons right now in the receiving core. Michael Roberts has done a very good job coming in. He's been getting more and more playing time in the tight end spot, and I think he's done a very good job being a late-round draft pick. You can see his progress so far. But they have to do something, Ben. They have to. I don't like free agent running backs unless they're under 27. I mean, unless you get a deal, and that doesn't happen. Because the running backs at a certain age just have that wear and tear. Look at Adrian Peterson right now with the Saints, and he ends up with the Cardinals. Once they have a certain wear and tear, it's just hard. You have to draft a running back. I've always believed that if you draft a running back, that's when you get the maximum value for your team. Mm-hmm. And I don't know where this team is going to draft right now, but I honestly believe they need a really good a couple offensive linemen they can get in the second, third round, but I think they need an impact running back to really make a difference. A guy who's going, but I still think at the same token, Ben, I mean, we look at the offensive line, and Matthew Stafford's been hurt quite a bit this year too. So maybe the offensive line still needs to be addressed, but I don't think Amir's a good running back either. Yeah, it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, he always had fumble issues when he was at Nebraska. Obviously, his first couple of seasons here in the NFL, he can't stay healthy. And to me, all those are two major concerns that you can't check off. I mean, you just can't. And I kind of had fun with it because the Lions also need help with defensive line help. And there's really good defensive linemen playing here in the state of Michigan. His name's Maurice Hurst. He's really, really good. He's quick. He's fast. He's fast just getting off the ball. And I had fun with it on Twitter because if you're starting to read mock drafts, one, you have an issue. But two, one mock draft has Maurice Hurst going at 24th overall to the Saints. So he's still in the realm of possibility that he could be a Lion. And I wondered if you had Saquon Barkley, if you had Bryce Love or Maurice Hurst all staring you in the face, who would you pick? And a lot of people still went with Saquon Barkley. And Matt Waldman, who does Rookie Scouting Report, did a really good breakdown. And it was a fair, honest breakdown of Saquon Barkley. I mean, I don't hate the kid. I think he's a very dynamic runner. But one thing he does is he freelances a lot. And it was something that Matt really showed, especially in a YouTube video, when he was breaking him down. There's times where Barkley doesn't just do a straight line run. Instead, he decides to cut back where he leaves yards on the field or he's tackled behind the line of scrimmage because for whatever reason, he thinks freelancing is better than just going from point A to point B. And sometimes Amir Abdullah has done that too. And Amir Abdullah would freelance a little bit when he was at Nebraska. But I don't know. I think if it's the first round and Maurice Hurst is staring you in the face, I'm almost thinking you pick the Michigan guy. Now, I'm not just saying that because I went to school there. But I honestly think, he would help A'Shawn Robinson. They're different players. A'Shawn Robinson is more of a guy that will take up a double team, and Maurice Hurst won't. He'll be able to shed that double team, get in the gap, and create some type of pass rush through the middle because Ziggy Ansah can't do it. Anthony Ziddell can only do it a handful of times. And I don't know. It seems like Bob Quinn's almost content fixing the offensive line the way the Patriots did. Was like just kind of draft a couple of guys from out of nowhere, develop them a little bit, and then just stick with them. And that's it. That's your offensive line. And maybe you'll fall into a guy who's good, like a Nate Soldier, who is just good out of nowhere. But I don't know. It's just, granted, on Lions SRD, we're going to be talking about the draft a lot because in the next couple of weeks we'll have enough time to do it. It's just, I don't know. It's just, what would you do in the first round? Would you go offensive line? Would you go a pass rusher because the Lions need it? Or would you go with a running back?
I know their one mock draft they had that the kid out of Vautech, McShay had that. That was who I saw. But McShay, I believe, had that kid out of Vautech. I'm trying to think of his name. I saw that on Twitter. I'm trying to think of his name right now. For whatever reason, I'm drawing a huge blank.
That's okay.
But they were talking about him being a potential as a for the Lions' first round draft pick in the mock draft. I'm sure there's gonna be 5 different shows. That's gonna be from here on out. It's gonna be mock draft 2.56 or whatever the case may be. You guys are gonna put so many names on it. It's gonna make your head spin. So that's what they're gonna address. I think I like to think they're gonna address if they're going. Oh, here it is. The Tremont Edmonds.
Okay.
So 6'5", 250 junior, who hasn't declared for the draft, but that's who McShay thinks they're gonna whether or not they're gonna sign Ansa. So, but at any rate, yeah, I would like them to, if they're not going to go running back first, then I would like to get the pass rush, because the definitely would be to get some of that push would be nice, and to make the Lions a little more aggressive, because they've been playing really with matches with the secondary. The secondary's been making all the plays, making the defense work a lot harder than they need to.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I mean, you kind of foreshadowed it a little bit earlier. We'll have a little fun with this one, but if you could pick Jim Caldwell's favorite movie, what would it be and why?
Oh, so it was let me find the one that I said earlier, that there's a couple. Ryan Schuling tweeted this out, and it had me rolling, and it was something that I thought it was funny, and I'm trying to remember what it was. And it was a movie that I haven't seen since I was a kid. It's a movie I saw on Channel 20. Plan 9 from the Outer Space.
And I've never heard of that. See, I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that's an older movie. I don't. You heard of Scanners, Ben?
Yeah.
Yeah, Scanners, because he always makes that face.
Uh-huh.
Because I feel like his head's gonna explode. So I think that is maybe his favorite movie. Perhaps. I think The Replacements came up.
Mm-hmm.
I think Hoosiers, something like that would be. I think if we really, for not a joking answer, I think legitimately something like Hoosiers would come up as a favorite movie. A favorite movie of his. Huh. Something like, or something maybe like along the lines of maybe or maybe like something like I think of another really serious movie. Chariots of Fire.
There you go. That would work.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to have fun with it, so I've picked a couple. The first one, Groundhog Day, because we have a saying here in Detroit. It's the same old Lions, so the same stuff always pops up during a Lions game. So his favorite movie would be Groundhog Day. What I really liked was Chris Burke said the Titanic. I just thought that was funny. And another one I liked, it was another Bill Murray movie. Roger, you may have heard of this one, The Man Who Knew Too Little.
That's a good call, Ben. I have not seen the movie in it's almost 20 years.
Yeah.
That came out in the 90s, didn't it? Yeah, that came out a long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Basically, if you guys don't know what this movie is, Bill Murray thinks he's going to be a part of this acting troupe that is going to be like in a crime drama. Well, essentially, it spirals out of hand because it's not an acting troupe. It's a real espionage thing, but he's just playing along happy-go-lucky, and he gets lucky and gets things right, just on a whim. So, long story short, he was the man who knew too little. So that's why I thought about it. I was like, you know what? That might be my favorite pick out of what his favorite movies would be. Now, if I had to pick a serious movie, maybe Any Given Sunday. I don't know. Because he said it would be hard to explain. So, Any Given Sunday or any other football movie like The Replacements just seems like you're hitting him over the head too much with it.
Too cliche.
Right. So maybe it's something like You've Got Mail. You know, I don't know.
Sleepless in Seattle.
It very well could. For example, a movie that I will watch every time if it's on is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. I think that movie's hysterical.
Oh, you know what movie? Wait! I got it. Something like, I could see him liking. It would be kind of weird. Maybe a movie, The Big Chill, or something like.
Oh, there you go.
Something like it's like a time something that might be dated, or Less Than Zero, like something that we might think of. We might not think of that he might like. That just something that came out for him in college or something along those lines that struck a chord with him, and that's why he can't explain it, because if he said it, people are like, huh? And to somebody out there, like, oh yeah, I remember that movie that came out in 1985 or something like that. Yeah, I get that. For example, one of my favorite movies that most people never heard of that is dated is a movie with Tatum O'Neal and Ryan O'Neal, the father and daughter combo. It's called Paper Moon, and that's a movie that she won an Academy Award for 1972, 73.
Okay.
No one's ever heard of that movie, so that's a fun fact about it. Or one of my other favorite movies is there's another movie that, it is a documentary or a movie that came out on HBO and the band played on, which is a movie about how the epidemic started. So, yeah, I'm sure there's some explanation, and he's a man of few words, so I guarantee you that's probably why.
Something that wasn't fun to learn at all this week was the fact that Aaron Rodgers is officially back. And you look at Green Bay's schedule, they have the Panthers. They're on the road at the Panthers. Then they host the Vikings, and then obviously they wrap up the season here on New Year's Eve in Detroit. And Aaron Rodgers actually said he doesn't seem like he's coming in just to save the Packers' season. But it kind of seems like he is. Granted, the Packers are behind the 8 ball because the Lions beat them on the road. But it's just something that there's no reason for him to come back unless you think you have a shot at the playoffs. And the reason why I say that, and this is the perfect time to refresh what the playoff picture looks like for you guys at home. Still, Eagles and Vikings are untouchable. They're not going anywhere. But the Falcons, after they won last Thursday, have jumped ahead of the Saints. And you still have the Panthers, Saints, Rams, Falcons. They jumped ahead of the Seahawks, not the Saints. I apologize. Either way, now it's the Seahawks that the Lions need to jump. And you're just like, okay, like you're thinking about it. You're like, is this possible? Well, if Aaron Rodgers beats the Panthers and the Lions beat the Bears, that helps. And if the Seahawks, who they have the Rams, and then they have the Cowboys, and then they have the Cardinals. So it's something that maybe, granted, I think the official odds makers have the Lions' playoff chances at 15%. But if the Lions win out and they get a couple of things to go their way, because the NFC South still has to cannibalize itself, I think they still have a game or two to face each other. That can help. And it's just something that I don't know necessarily if this week is a week where you're just like, Aaron Rodgers is coming back. Well, that sucks. No, I think this week it's awesome. It's going to help the Lions because Green Bay could easily beat the Panthers because the Panthers are a up and down team just like the Lions are, even though the Panthers were able to beat the Lions. But I don't know. It's no matter what, if the Lions are playing for a playoff spot on the final week 17 on New Year's Eve, and you have to face Aaron Rodgers yet again, that's gonna be a tough sell. It's gonna be fun because that game even last year was fun, but to me it's just gonna be a tough sell. It really is, because I don't think the Lions can beat Aaron Rodgers. I think he's their kryptonite. But what are your thoughts on it, Raj?
Aaron Rodgers. Okay, so a couple weeks ago we talked about this on the road show. We talked about how when the Silverdome was getting torn down, that we came up with the idea that one wrecking ball would be the Bears, one wrecking ball would be the Vikings, one would be the Packers, and the other one would be Brett Favre, because those are the four destructive forces that always rock the Silverdome. Mm-hmm. The day that Ford Field's ever torn down, Aaron Rodgers will be a wrecking ball, because that man just is the. Everybody talks about, like, there's Tiger killers. There's always talk about you think of players who have been like, Larry Bird. I'm reaching for straws here in terms of like Tiger killers. There's always been like David Ortiz. There's Aaron Rodgers is, and I'm trying to think of a hockey one, but I can't think of one right now. But Aaron Rodgers is that for the Lions.
Joe
no matter what you do,
I was going to say
Joe Sakic.
I mean, Joe Sakic, and you could name anyone from the Colorado Avalanche. I mean, you really could.
Joe Foote. I remember Adam Foote.
Adam Foote would be a good one. Peter Forsberg would be a good one.
That's another one too.
Who else on the hockey side though?
When after he got from here from Montreal.
Yeah.
At Belfort. At Belfort wasn't, because the Wings always beat him in the playoffs. I'm trying to think of another example. But get back to Rodgers. The thing about him is Lions fans try to deny it all they want. Can't deny the fact that the man is a dude. The Lions could be up 21. And, Aaron Rodgers but Aaron Rodgers is sitting there back there. You know what I mean? With Brett Hundley in there winning Green Bay, it didn't matter because they didn't beat Aaron Rodgers. It felt like a shallow loss. It felt like a hollow win. Sorry, a hollow win because it wasn't against Aaron Rodgers. And you saw him on the opera room or in the operating table, give him a thumbs up. Like the Lions fans just head dropped. They knew it was like, hey, he's coming. And there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, though. Like, part of me wonders if his shoulder's even healthy enough. Like, if he takes another big hit, like, let's say Julius Peppers comes in this week and just gets one big shot on Aaron Rodgers, and it's clean, kind of like the Barr hit was, and he lands on that operated shoulder. I mean, that shoulder is not 100%. So, and all you need to do to remember how bad collarbones can be, you can even think of Charles Rodgers. But it's just, I don't know. Like, if it's week 17 and it's coming down to it, yes, I'm still picking Green Bay over Detroit any day of the week. But there's just something that another reason why I hope the Lions lose is because I want Caldwell fired. At this point, like, I'm just all for anything to get this guy out of town, because I don't think if he wins out, the Lions are going to be like, yeah, bye. So, I don't know. It's just, the news was ominous. Just hearing Aaron Rodgers back, everyone around this town just did the classic deep gulp and was like, oh, good, okay, here we go. But I don't know. Maybe it's not all bad. Maybe Detroit wins the next 2 games and they have a shot at the playoffs and they play inspired. Who knows? But right when Aaron Rodgers came back, even though he said, I'm not coming back to save my season, that's just him being humble. Because I think that's I just think that's the only reason why he's coming back. Even though it would make more sense for Green Bay to not play him, but yeah.
He said with a smile on his face too. I mean, come on. He's like in the back of his mind. I mean, I'll give certain credit though. Brett Hundley did not play too badly. I mean, he was scared to do a lot of throws, but still, I thought Brett Hundley did not do too bad.
Well, he almost beat the Steelers, right? He got a win last week. I mean, he's gotten better every week since they finally tailored the offense to him a little bit. He has gotten better, so it's not all bad in by any means. But really quick house cleaning note: Lions claimed a defensive tackle off waivers from the Seattle Seahawks. His name is Rodney Coe, and obviously, if you pick up one, you have to drop another. Kasim Edebali is gone. He was a defensive end who did not see time in Detroit. So that happened. Outside of that, Roger, we basically do a prediction. Who do you think wins Saturday's game between the Bears and the Lions, and why?
Well, let me see. Let me think about this for a second. Well, if I'm going to be perfectly honest, because we have I don't know what the standings are on the Roadshow pick'ems right now, and I have to. Mm-hmm. So does this mean if I make this pick now, does that mean the same pick for Saturday?
No, different show, different rules. On Saturday, I'm not going to be like, oh no, wait a minute, you picked the Bears, you stick with the Bears. No, I'm not going to do that to you. So, just
okay,
yeah.
The over, okay, so it's over under 44 on this game. So, and the Lions are predicted. I'm trying to look at this, 5.5. I'm gonna have to go. Again, the Bears are not that good on the road, but so I'm gonna take the Lions. I'm gonna go Lions here, and I'm gonna go predict that it's gonna be close, but I think they pull away 31-21.
That's fair. That is fair, and I'm gonna eat the words that I said on the road show because I didn't think that Stafford could throw a football all that well, and he did. He threw for over 300 yards, almost 400 yards, even with a hand that wasn't 100%. Did have a couple of interceptions, I will say that. But I think the Lions win this one for no reason other than the fact that the Bears are just not that good. And granted, the Lions aren't good at home, but I think the Lions easily win this one and look forward to playing Cincinnati in the following week and see what happens there. But any last little nuggets, tidbits, Roger, that caught your eye? I think there was something with Deadspin that made you at least chuckle.
Former Lion for a hot second.
I was going to say, even as I say that, you chuckle.
A former Lion for a hot second. And I do mean, how long was he here?
About a week.
Maybe a week.
Because he played in the preseason, and then after the third game of the preseason, I think they traded him, so maybe not even an official NFL week.
Yeah, he was here. He was also on a Lions podcast. We also had him here on too.
Huh?
Yeah, I think Abe or Dave interviewed him. So
there you go.
He is serving. Jets receiver, former Lion Jeremy Curley is back in practice after serving a 4-game suspension for a positive PED test. At the time of his ban, he said he was shocked as he never knowingly took steroids. A month later, just as confused, though, the experience led him to explore the possibilities of a realm of his own. Asked how he did a tainted supplement in his system, he said, quote, "I don't know. A lot of ghosts around here. Ghosts put it in. The ghost of Christmas past."
So a ghost contaminated his sample.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Doesn't get much better than that. I mean, I don't know. That is one of the weirdest excuses ever. But at least it's creative, right? Give him points for creativity, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's like, wow,
Oh, yeah. I mean, it definitely doesn't make sense. But like I said, points for creativity. Outside of that, though, like I said, I don't have anything else. I don't think you have anything else, do you?
Nah, I'm good, man. It's hopefully they go to 8-6, and at least let's just make it interesting. That's all. That's all I ask. Make the Lions, make it a little interesting. If they lose to the Bears, are you gonna be surprised? That's my, are you really gonna be that surprised?
Yes, I would, because you shouldn't lose to a team like the Bears. I mean, if we're talking about like the Bengals, like if they lost to the Bengals, then I wouldn't be surprised. But it's the Bears we're talking about. The Bears still aren't that great, but you never know. You never know. You just don't. But Roger, appreciate you stepping up to the plate. Good as always. Good stuff as always. You can catch Roger, like I said, Tigers SRD. They did a great podcast last week. They're going to do probably another good one this week because Ian Kinsler was traded, then not traded, then traded.
Yep. Brandon Day from Bless You Boys will be joining us tomorrow, and we'll be doing by the time you listen to us, so you'll be doing this tonight. So Brandon Day will be joining us.
Very nice. Yeah, Brandon does good work. Bless You Boys does good work too. It's a good alternative if you're looking for Tiger stuff. Obviously, the SRD Roadshow will be on Saturday from 9 to 11. This Saturday tailgate follows that from 11 to 12. And we have hockey this weekend. Last weekend, we debuted hockey with Livonia Stevenson. They won out in Grand Rapids, beating Forest Hills Northern Eastern in a thrilling 4-3 win. But there's a big showcase Saturday. The MIHL and the KLAA, two big hockey conferences in Michigan high school hockey, squaring off at Eddie Edgar Arena out in Livonia, and we'll be carrying 2 games. Obviously, Livonia Stevenson, we will be covering that game. They're facing Orchard Lake St. Mary's and Brian Klenau's Eaglets. And then we have a good one, a sneaky good one, Salem versus Trenton. Both good teams, both very respectable teams. Trenton still trying to be the Trenton of old that we all think of when you think of Trenton, but it's going to be a good game either way. You can catch both games here on Sports Radio Detroit. Out of bounds every week they're live on Facebook when they can get the chance to, and you can catch them on demand here. Laugh Tracks, The Set Piece. We have Spinning the Wheels. We have a bunch of shows, basically, that you can listen to. But that's all the time we have here on Lions SRD. Appreciate, again, Roger, you stopping by. And do you know how we end the show? Because I'll let you end it.
I listened to the episode last week, or the last couple weeks, and I'm totally drawing a blank.
It's okay. It's really quick. It's succinct, and we just say good night.
Good night.
This has been an SRD production.